They told you success begins the day you decide to chase it. That's a comforting story. The truth is far less dramatic and far more dangerous. Most of the battles that shape your life don't arrive with an announcement. There are no countdowns, no warning signs, no audience waiting to applaud. While you're busy looking for the big moment, life is quietly measuring what you do when nobody is paying attention. Every excuse, every habit, every choice to stand back up after failing, they all become answers to a test you never realized had already begun. And one day, without even noticing when it happened, you wake up carrying proof that you've already survived questions you never knew were being asked. People keep waiting for the moment when life finally gets serious. They imagine there will be a loud announcement, a perfect opportunity, a spotlight pointing exactly where they're supposed to stand. They wait for a clear signal that says, "Now the real challenge begins." That's the joke. By the time you're looking for the starting line, you've already left footprints all over the track. Nobody tells you that your biggest test doesn't begin with a question. It begins with an ordinary morning. The alarm rings. You decide whether to get up or make another excuse. Someone disappoints you. You decide whether to become bitter or keep moving. You fail at something. You decide whether failure becomes your identity or just another bruise. Tiny decisions, almost invisible, stacking on top of each other until they become the person staring back at you in the mirror. It's funny how people worship dramatic moments. They think courage only exists in grand speeches and impossible sacrifices. They ignore the quiet choices because quiet choices don't look impressive. But that's where everything is decided. Character isn't built when the room is watching. It's exposed when the room is empty. Nobody claps because you refuse to quit today. Nobody hands out trophies because you controlled your anger, stayed disciplined, or kept your word. Those victories disappear before anyone notices them. That's exactly why they matter. The world has a strange way of distracting people. It convinces them that the next opportunity will change everything, while today's decision means nothing. Tomorrow becomes a comfortable hiding place. It whispers that you'll become stronger later, more disciplined later, more confident later. Meanwhile, later quietly steals years from people who never realized they were negotiating with time they couldn't get back. Every setback looked random when it happened. Every rejection felt unfair. Every lonely night seemed meaningless. But none of them were random. They were questions without question marks. They weren't asking what you knew. They were asking who you were when life stopped being fair. Anyone can smile when the road is smooth. The real answers appear when everything around you starts falling apart, and there's nobody left to reassure you that you'll be fine. The strange part is that most people never recognize the exam because it doesn't feel like one. It feels like routine. It feels like boredom. It feels like disappointment. It feels like another ordinary day that seems too small to matter. That's how the test hides itself, not behind impossible obstacles, but behind ordinary moments that people underestimate until years later they realize those ordinary moments quietly decided everything. Everyone loves to believe that life is shaped by the big decisions, choosing a career, starting a business, taking a risk, walking onto a stage. Those moments look powerful because they're easy to remember. But life has a darker sense of humor. It hides your future inside decisions so small they barely seem worth noticing. Nobody wakes up one morning transformed. They become someone new one quiet choice at a time. Every morning you make a decision before your feet even touch the floor. Do you move, or do you bargain with yourself for 5 more minutes? It sounds harmless, just a few moments. But habits don't measure time the way people do. They measure direction. Every excuse is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every disciplined action is another vote cast in the opposite direction. Nobody sees the election taking place because it happens inside your own mind. People think success arrives with one heroic act. That's a comforting fantasy. The uncomfortable reality is that greatness gets assembled from choices so ordinary they feel invisible. Choosing to practice when you're tired. Choosing to stay honest when lying would be easier. Choosing to finish what you started even when nobody is checking your progress. Those moments don't create headlines. They create identity. The world rewards appearances, so people become obsessed with looking successful instead of becoming capable. They chase recognition before earning it. They decorate the outside while the inside quietly falls apart. The strange thing is that reality doesn't care about appearances. It only responds to repeated actions. Pretending to be confident doesn't build confidence. Repeated courage does. Talking about discipline doesn't create discipline. Living it does, especially when nobody is there to celebrate it. Every shortcut carries an invisible price tag. Every corner you cut today becomes another obstacle waiting for you tomorrow. It's almost poetic. People think they're escaping the consequences, but they're only postponing the bill. The debt keeps growing until one day they're forced to pay with regret instead of effort. That's a much more expensive currency. Then there are the choices people dismiss because they seem too insignificant. Reading a few pages instead of scrolling endlessly. Keeping a promise you made to yourself. Speaking with respect when anger feels more satisfying. Taking responsibility instead of inventing another excuse. None of these decisions feel life-changing in the moment. That's why they're so dangerous to ignore. They slip beneath your attention while quietly shaping your future. The cruelest illusion is believing that small actions don't matter because they don't produce immediate results. People plant one seed and expect a forest by sunset. When nothing dramatic happens, they abandon the habit and call it useless. They never realize that every unnoticed decision was being counted long before they ever saw the final score. People spend their lives trying to avoid pain, as if comfort is the highest achievement anyone can reach. They chase easy roads, quick rewards, and effortless victories because that's what everyone applauds. But comfort has a habit of making people soft without them noticing. It whispers that everything is fine while quietly stealing their ability to endure. Pain, on the other hand, never bothers to lie. It introduces itself without kindness, tears away every illusion, and forces you to see exactly who you are. Nobody volunteers for hardship. Nobody wakes up hoping to be rejected, betrayed, ignored, or knocked down. Yet those moments arrive anyway, carrying lessons nobody would have accepted if they came wrapped in comfort. It's strange how people complain about the very experiences that end up shaping them. The failures they cursed become the reason they stop fearing failure. The heartbreak they thought would destroy them becomes the reason they finally understand their own strength. The disappointments they wanted erased become the chapters they can never afford to lose. People call pain an enemy because they only see the damage. They don't notice the construction happening underneath. Every difficult moment strips away another layer of illusion. The illusion that life owes you fairness. The illusion that talent is enough. The illusion that someone else will rescue you when everything falls apart. Pain doesn't ask for permission before exposing those lies. It simply tears the mask off and waits to see what remains. The funny thing is that people admire strong individuals without admiring the suffering that created them. They want the confidence without the humiliation. They want the wisdom without the mistakes. They want resilience without ever being broken. It's like asking for scars without surviving the wound. Strength isn't something you collect from motivational quotes or perfect days. It's carved into people by moments they desperately wished would end. Every setback leaves you standing at a crossroads. One path leads to resentment. The other leads to growth. Both roads begin with the same pain, but they end with completely different people. Some become prisoners of what happened to them, carrying old wounds like trophies. Others quietly transform those same wounds into proof that they can survive almost anything. The event stays the same. The meaning changes. Life has an unusual way of educating people. It rarely explains the lesson before giving the exam. Instead, it throws chaos into your path and watches your response. Every obstacle becomes another classroom. Every failure becomes another assignment. Every moment of loneliness becomes another lecture about self-reliance. The teacher never raises its voice. It simply keeps presenting the same lesson until you finally stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start realizing that every painful experience has been sharpening parts of you that comfort never could. There's something amusing about the way the world measures strength. If a crowd cheers, it must be important. If cameras are recording, it must be meaningful. If thousands of people notice your success, then somehow it becomes real. That's the performance everyone buys into. But the most valuable victories are usually invisible. They happen in silence, far away from applause, where no one is keeping score except the person staring back at you in the mirror. People crave recognition because it feels like proof. A compliment, a promotion, a trophy, a few words of admiration. It all feels satisfying. But there's a dangerous trap hidden inside that desire. The moment your motivation depends on someone else's approval, you've handed them control over your effort. If they clap, you keep going. If they ignore you, you stop. That's not strength. That's dependency wearing confidence like a borrowed costume. The strongest version of you is built during moments nobody celebrates. It's choosing discipline after another exhausting day. It's continuing to improve even when nobody notices the progress. It's refusing to quit despite the uncomfortable silence that follows every unseen sacrifice. Those moments don't make headlines. They make character, quietly, patiently, without asking anyone for permission. It's strange how people underestimate private victories. They believe skipping one workout doesn't matter because nobody saw it. They think breaking one promise to themselves is harmless because no one else knows. They assume one lazy decision disappears into yesterday. But every unnoticed action leaves a mark. The person you become isn't shaped by public moments. It's shaped by private patterns repeated over and over until they become impossible to separate from your identity. Then life does something unexpected. One day, everyone notices the result. Suddenly people call you disciplined, confident, successful, resilient. They admire the final picture, while remaining completely blind to the thousands of invisible brushstrokes that created it. They congratulate the outcome, but ignore the lonely mornings, the painful failures, the endless repetition, and the moments when nobody believed in you, not even yourself. The irony is almost laughable. People think success appears overnight because they only witness the final chapter. They never see the years spent struggling without recognition. They never hear the conversations you had with yourself when giving up felt reasonable. They never witness the countless decisions to keep moving while the world remained completely unaware of your existence. Real growth has never needed an audience. A seed doesn't become a tree because people stand around watching it. It grows underground first, hidden beneath dirt where nobody applauds its progress. The roots become stronger long before anyone sees the branches reaching toward the sky. Human beings aren't much different. The unseen effort always arrives before the visible reward. The quiet battles always come before the public victories. The strength everyone admires is almost always forged during seasons when nobody was paying attention and no one thought your persistence was worth noticing. Most people spend years searching for proof that they're capable. They keep waiting for permission, for certainty, for someone important enough to tell them they've finally earned the right to believe in themselves. It's almost entertaining. They stand outside a door that's been unlocked the entire time, convincing themselves they're trapped because nobody handed them a key. The prison was never made of steel. It was made of hesitation. Look back for a moment, not to celebrate the past, but to expose the illusion. Think about everything that was supposed to break you, the failures that embarrassed you, the nights when doubt was louder than hope, the people who walked away when you needed them most, The dreams that collapsed before they even had a chance to breathe. None of those moments asked whether you were ready. They simply arrived, and somehow, despite everything, you're still here. People underestimate survival because it doesn't always look impressive. They think strength has to be loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. They imagine resilience as someone standing on top of a mountain with a victorious smile. Reality is much less glamorous. Sometimes resilience is dragging yourself out of bed when your mind tells you to stay there. Sometimes it's taking one more step when every part of you wants to stop. Sometimes surviving another day becomes the greatest achievement no one else will ever notice. The strange part is that people keep collecting evidence of their own strength while refusing to believe it exists. Every obstacle they overcame becomes an accident. Every challenge they survived becomes luck. Every lesson they learned gets dismissed as coincidence. They build an entire library filled with proof, then refuse to read a single page because they're too busy convincing themselves they aren't enough. The world has an interesting habit of making people forget their own victories. It reminds them of every mistake, every failure, every embarrassing moment, but rarely encourages them to remember how many impossible situations they already escaped. That's how doubt survives. It feeds on selective memory. It wants you to remember every time you fell, while forgetting every single time you stood back up. Here's the trick nobody talks about. Confidence isn't born from imagining a perfect future. It's born from recognizing the battles you've already survived. The person you are today didn't appear out of nowhere. Every difficult decision, every painful lesson, every quiet sacrifice added another layer to someone far stronger than the version who first began this journey. The exam wasn't waiting somewhere ahead. It was hidden inside every ordinary day you thought didn't matter, and every answer you gave through your actions has already revealed what you're truly made of.